Call this meeting to order to the City Council. Before we start, real quickly, Kane with the newspaper asked for a little indulgence, and I'll grant her that. She's got a visitor with you today. If you'd go ahead and introduce her to us, Kane, before we start.
Charisma Hart. She is a student intern from Horizon, and if you read my story about Horizon, they are requiring all their seniors to do an internship this year, which I think is incredible.
Excellent.
She's going to be shadowing me.
Welcome, and why don't you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, if you would, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome. We need to start with a roll call. Ms. Harris, will you help us with that?
Sure. Everyone is present, and we do have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. We have an agenda before us. Is there any changes to that agenda we need to consider? I'll entertain a motion to approve as it's prepared.
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Mr. Welling? A second.
I'll second it, Your Honor.
Mr. Perks, seconding. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? We've got an agenda. We've got the council minutes for August 20th. Any concerns regarding those minutes? If not, we will acknowledge those as they've been prepared and go to the work session minutes for August 27. Same thing there. Any concerns? We will acknowledge those as well then, and we'll go to the bills. You got a copy of the register?
Looks a little big, but I think that's because of the bill for the overlays, which turned out very good. So, yes. Everybody that got a new road this summer.
A lot of folks did.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the bills.
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Perks.
I'll second it.
Welling seconding. Any discussion? Discussion? If there is none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? That takes care of the bills. Council comments. Mr. Lynch, what's on your mind tonight?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Mr. Lynn.
I wanted to thank Rocco and everyone else. I know Natasha Harris has a big part in that, but anybody that went to the block party and watched the Cowboys get their butt kicked, I thought that was an awesome event. I think it's fantastic. So everybody that was involved, I want to say thanks. And nice job, Rocco.
Mr. Perks.
I have nothing tonight.
Mr. Welling.
I don't have anything tonight, Your Honor.
Mr. Sellers.
I want to thank the community for turning out and supporting the Rotary and the pancake breakfast. We had 475 people show up and a lot of pancakes and a lot of fun. The weather was great. I also like to talk about, is anybody, the Safe to Tell program is a program for youth. It's a nationwide program. We do it. We have it locally in our state. Lieutenant Pearson knows the numbers directly and is integral in making it happen. But we cover the Safe to Tell numbers in the Suicide Task Force because the different things habits that kids do lead to suicide. And so after our last meeting, we were talking about bullying, and that's the #1 call that we get in our state is bullying, and there's a big tie to suicide. And I would just mind everybody to watch kids if they're withdrawing, if they say they're being picked on, if there's things going on, make sure you're hearing them out, make sure you're listening to them, get them where they need to be. Our society's different. When I was a kid, you just punched each other in the nose and you got up and going. Our society doesn't function that way anymore. So we need to be mindful and see what's out there and help our kids. That's what I have.
Zagman.
Not too much tonight, just enjoy the weather while we still have it. It's been absolutely astounding, and these rain squalls at night that cool everything down, man, it's why we live here, isn't it? It's just amazing.
Thank you. I have nothing to add tonight, so we'll move on to our public hearings and special orders, and we'll start there with a public hearing to receive some input regarding liquor licenses. Mr. Harris, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, as a preliminary matter, there are several licenses all up for renewals. Before I call the hearing, we do have a request from Joco LLC to table the hearing and action on the license 25-09 Joco LLC DBA Queen City Saloon. The primary owner, Mr. Westerman, and I had been exchanging some information regarding the renewal and a request for extension of the operational time limit. And he wanted to be here tonight. A family obligation prevented him from doing so. I hope the council got that email from him. And I told him certainly I would ask the council to table the hearing, and there'll be a related tabling on a motion on that operational extension until September 17th at 5:30. So I'd specifically ask if the council could make that motion before we go through the rest of the list.
So we would table the discussion on all of the liquor licenses?
No,
Is that
just that license.
Okay. And then does that affect the
Yes, the latter motion on operation.
Okay.
Yes, it
So
would.
then we'll address that when we get to that then?
Correct.
Okay. So what do we need to do? We just need to remove that?
Motion to table the hearing and consideration of Joco LLC to September 17th.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to table the discussion on 2509 until Mr. Westerman can be
I
here.
need to recuse.
Oh, okay.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Sellers making the motion to table that discussion for Mr. Westerman. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Welling seconding. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Harris. I'm the Evanston City Attorney. The purpose of the hearings at this point in time is for the council to receive evidence regarding the renewal of liquor licenses or licenses involving retail licenses, limited retail or club licenses, restaurant licenses, bar and grill, and resort liquor licenses. The applications for renewal have been reviewed by the city clerk's office and the staff of the Wyoming Liquor Commission, and they have determined that the applications are complete. Notice of the applications for renewal has been published in a newspaper of local circulation once a week for 2 consecutive weeks. The notice shall be admitted as part of the record in this matter. The issues in the hearings are set forth in section 4-9 of the city code, which provides as follows. A license or permit shall not be issued, renewed, or transferred if the city council finds from the evidence presented at a hearing, 1, the welfare of the people residing in the vicinity of the proposed license or permit premises shall be adversely and seriously affected. 2, the purpose of this chapter shall not be carried out by the renewal of the license or permit. 3, the number, type, or location of existing licenses or permits meets the needs of the vicinity under consideration. 4, the desires of the residents of the city will not be met or satisfied by the renewal of the licenses or permit. 5, any other reasonable restriction or standard which may be imposed by the city council shall not be carried out by the renewal of the license or permits. The owner and holder of a liquor license or permit, or one due for expiration, has a preferential right to a new license for the same location. After notice and public hearing, each application claiming renewal preference shall be promptly considered and acted upon by the council. The hearings will proceed in the following manner. Anyone wishing to speak to the council regarding any license should approach the podium, state their name and mailing address, and present their testimony. No one will be cross-examined, but all those who approach the podium may be asked questions by members of the council. After testimony from the public is provided, if any, the council may have questions of staff regarding any license application. After any questions of the council for staff, the hearing will be closed and the applications will be acted upon per Wyoming statutes and the city code. Is there anyone present who wishes to testify concerning any renewal of the liquor license now pending before the council? Is there anyone present who wishes to provide testimony? Mr. Mayor, there are none. Does the council have any questions for staff?
I do not, I don't think.
Do we still have a resort license? Did we get that resolved from last year?
We do. Councilmember Lynn, Mr. Mayor, that is the, I can't remember the name.
Portable Inn.
Yeah, Portable Inn, 336
Yeah.
Wasatch or whatever.
So that
Yes.
got completely resolved? Oh, okay, sorry. That might have been
No, good question.
off subject, but
No, that's good.
No, I have no,
Okay.
does anybody
Any
else?
other questions? There being no further questions, the hearing in this matter shall be closed, and the applications are now subject to action, Mr. Mayor, under a motion to approve the applications for renewal of the liquor licenses within the city of Evanston.
Excellent, thank you. Given that, I will entertain a motion to approve these applications for renewal for liquor
I'll make
licenses.
that motion.
Mr. Lynch, is that who I heard?
Yeah.
Mr. Lynch, the motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Sellers, seconding. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Takes care of that. We now need to consider a motion to set a public hearing for October 1st to consider a lease. Mr. Harris, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the Community Development and Facilities Department and the City Attorney's Office is requesting a hearing on October 1, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. to consider a lease containing a grant of option to purchase real property located at 196 Bear River Drive in Evanston, Wyoming to AGN LLC. This is a proposed sale under the Economic Development Statute as part of disposition of real property. That requires a public hearing. The notice of the proposal sets forth various information needed to tell the public about the sales price and terms, and that has to be advertised 3 separate occasions. That would mean that if approved to set this hearing, the hearing will be set October 1, and advertising will commence next Wednesday for the following 3 consecutive weeks.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to set this public hearing?
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Willing. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Your Honor.
Burke seconding. Any discussion?
what is it we're selling?
Pardon?
What is it we're selling?
What it was selling, the real property and improvements located, we're leasing with an option to purchase.
Okay.
At 196 Bear River Drive. That's commonly what I would call the Sunset Cabin property.
That's what, okay, that's what I thought.
Yes.
That's what I want to make sure.
And Councilmember Lind, all of those terms, you'll have the lease with the option in it at the public hearing.
Okay.
Any further discussion? If there's none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? And that sets that public hearing. We now need to consider a motion to set another public hearing for September 17 regarding the budget.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is a motion to set a public hearing for September 17th at 5:30 p.m. to receive public input regarding amending the City of Evanston 2024-25 fiscal year budget by increasing general fund expenditures by $84,000 for relocation of the Union Pacific Railroad water tower from Wasatch, Utah to the Evanston Roundhouse and Rail Yards.
I guess this is an issue that we've talked about for some time, and I know that we're just talking about a public hearing here, and this is not a decision relative to the budget, but I do think it's worthy of mention that we've had a lot of arbitrary numbers put out, and that concerns me. I think if we consider this movement of this water tower without hard and fast numbers as best we can, I think we lose some integrity with regard to our budget, and that concerns me greatly. Now, again, I realize that this is just a public hearing. I also, I guess I've got some concerns relative to the tower itself. I've not yet seen any record of what it might cost specifically from a contractor, from a crane company, from an engineer that might design the footings, cost associated with or scope of work. I've not seen any documentation from UP that would convey ownership to the city or to RINC or to anyone else for that matter. I've not seen any documentation there. I've not seen anything from RINC. The Roundhouse Restoration folks involved and willing to accept ownership and responsibility for this particular tower, and so I've got some real concerns about this whole issue that I think need to be considered. Now, again, we're just setting a public hearing here, so I'll let this move forward, and obviously a decision will be yet to be made relative to the budget. But with that, has anybody else got anything that they want to add before we move on this?
I think this is a worthwhile endeavor. I understand your concerns completely as far as real numbers, engineering, all of those questions need to be answered. But I think this gives us an opportunity to say, hey, we want this project to move forward. We are in the first steps of getting it to move forward, but I think it allows us to explore the option of getting that tower here. I think it's a great idea to get it here. I think it'd be a great fit for the Roundhouse. I am a fiscal conservative, though, and I do understand we don't need to be wasting money, because I do not want to waste money. But I think if we can explore this endeavor and get that water tower here and do it at a pretty good cost, I think it's a worthwhile endeavor to at least start the process myself.
Anybody else have any comments?
No, and just, we've kicked this around a lot. We keep talking about it. We keep kicking the can or the water tower down the road. And it's important, especially with the weather coming, to get dates. So it gives everybody a timeline to get information, hard information to us, so we can make that decision. And I'm a fiscal conservative as well, so we just need to start getting things in paper, and by putting things with a deadline, I always find that helps.
Mr. Ferens, it's my understanding you are the president of RINC currently? Yes. Mr. Ferens back here. I'm talking to Mr. Ferens. You're the president of RINC right now? Correct. At this stage of this discussion, do you have anything to add, sir? Yeah, please come forward.
So, Tom Ferens, for my address, 305 Sparrow Drive, Evanston. I'm the current president of RINC. There has been a little bit of discussion about some things going on back and forth. I do want to say that this request is coming from the HPC, Historic Preservation Commission, has made this request. They haven't talked to us directly about this. But I will say this is a project we definitely would support if they come and talk to us a little bit more. A little bit of background for some of you who may not know me. I used to work for Myers Anderson Architects, was the primary designer, project manager on the majority of the projects at the Roundhouse Machine Shop. Part of one of the projects that we did, it's been 20 plus years ago now, but it was a master plan of the whole rail yards. And one of the key components of that master plan was moving the water tower down to the rail yards. It has been looked at again over the last 20 years, different times. We had gotten some prices to move the water tower at one point. I have to go back and look at numbers. There's also been a preliminary concept design of what the foundations and how that would fit down there and where it would fit on the site and everything. So there has been a lot of preliminary work done on that. But as far as you all know, the last 5 years, budget estimates have all gone crazy when you're looking at an estimate from 10 years previous. And I don't know if the HPC has done any more looking to set this $84,000 number for that. But the other thing I'd like to mention too, as far as from the rink standpoint, the water tower has been our primary focus for donations over the last 3 or 4 Roundhouse Festivals. That's been the thing that we've been telling people that's our next big project that we do want to work on. So again, having this motion or this information being brought forward is again more from the HPC. Rink is definitely a supporter of this project. Is definitely behind it. And has been fundraising to help pay for this number of years.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a question. What were your cost estimates back then? Do you remember?
I do not remember. We had gotten a cost from a crane company to come in and move it. The biggest issue is, as you can imagine, you got to get out onto the interstate, move it down. We had talked a little bit about trying to maybe work with the UP to see if we could load it onto a flatbed on the tracks and move it down, but it never got further than just initial discussions. And it's been long enough ago. If I said a number, I could be completely wrong. I don't remember what it was.
Got one more question for you. Working with Myers Anderson in projects like this, I'm not going to hold you to this, but you think 84,000 is a good number?
That could be a good number to get it down here. I think there may be some additional costs for foundations. We had talked about in the early concept phase was to actually run water to it so that you could use it almost as a splash pad. You can have water dripping out of it like it was still functional and stuff. That doesn't mean it has to be that way.
Right.
We're running power out to it as well. All those, the costs that we had looked at. Now, I haven't worked with Myers Anderson for about 9 years now, so I don't know if they had looked at it since I left them, but if I remember right, the crane cost to move it was probably the biggest cost. The foundations weren't as bad. It was just finding somebody who willing to move it, could fit into their time schedule, and then fit the budget.
Right. So this 84,000 is the number we're getting for moving and putting in the foundation and re-erecting it.
Yeah, and again, I don't know where they came up with that number, if that was it's working, but it seems reasonable.
Okay.
Just from my project experience, but I also haven't moved very many water towers, so
Yeah.
I don't have much experience with that.
I don't know many people that have moved water towers, so thank you.
The last time I have been to it, when I worked for Myers Anderson, we've got full drawings of it, we've measured it up, we did quite a bit of preliminary work to get it to this point, and it was, it's in rough shape, but it still was in structural, it was in good condition. So it was mostly cosmetic issues.
Okay. So I got one more question. So I'm just full of questions tonight. So Rink also owns the dining car and those other cars that are down there, correct?
The city owns those. I don't
Okay.
think the Rink themselves.
Okay.
Rink as a nonprofit, we don't
Right.
really own
Anything?
It's all
Okay.
for the city. Yeah.
I'm just curious because those are sitting down there and starting to look like a junkyard down there. That's my concern. That if we don't get this
When
done.
I was on HPC, I had previously been on HPC. I know that those were some projects that
Right.
we had made a list of kind of our priority projects, and those were on the list. But as everybody knows, you only have so much money and it kind of divvied up between all the different projects.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks, Tom.
Mr. Sellers?
So this is kind of for both of you, Mr. Eccleston. I support the water tower, but I also support being responsible. I would encourage for the public hearing as much solid data as we can have to review. I personally would appreciate that.
No, I appreciate that as well, yeah. I did not know this was on the agenda tonight until I got a call that I was told that this was on the agenda. So,
Thank you. Appreciate it. And again, we're just setting, we don't need to get too far off in the weeds. The discussion relative to the budget specific is to be made in the future, so we're just considering a public hearing tonight. So I appreciate that input. And I'll entertain a motion to set a public hearing for September 17th at 5:30 concerning this budget amendment.
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Mr. Perks with the motion,
I'll second.
Mr. Sellers seconding. Any discussion on the motion?
I think if you get with your contractors, Rick, and get some hard numbers for us, that would really help. I know you've given us numbers, but that's not from the contractors. We're going to have some solid numbers from them, not just you. You're the middle guy, and I appreciate all the work you've done. But do you understand what we're trying to say? We need something from them stating what they're going to charge. Yeah, I'm talking to it.
I've never met Mr. Farron before, so, and I couldn't hear a lot of what he said.
You've never met Mr. Ferens before?
No. And I just know that, with Jim, Shelley, and the people, that's where it had to go. So I would love to get with him when they're down to talk to.
Okay, thank you.
And I will get solid numbers, and I'll work real hard to have those for you, because I had solid numbers, but they all, over time, I'm not sure. I talked to Mr. Wagstaff today. His numbers said he was on the crane. When I, going forward, up until Friday, when I got the chance to talk with Mr. Harris and Dave Newsom, and it was looking positive. All the things you brought up, Mayor, I've written down to take care of. And also, but that was Friday, and today is Tuesday, and we had a 3-day weekend. So I didn't get started on it except to call Kevin Wagstaff. And I will get you hard numbers from them. And we have raised money to be able to do help. It isn't all on your shoulder. We're going to make it so it's easy on the city. So anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If you've got something more to add, we're just talking about a public, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off, but we're just talking about a public hearing here. So.
I'm sorry, I don't know how any of it works, but as a Union Pacific employee, I can't specify what the Union Pacific is going to do, but I know you raised concerns that the question of real property and the property of the water tower, what does the city need from the Union Pacific to display that there is a transfer of property from the Union Pacific to the city of Evanston?
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Mr. Eskelson mentioned that last Friday, he and I, Mr. Horn and Mr. Newsom had a meeting. Damon was out doing other things, so he came in. I think we met for about an hour and 15 minutes. And so all the questions that you're talking about, we went over. And I told Mr. Eskelson, here's some things I think you're going to need to look at. And one of those was, how does the water tower get transferred? And the answer was, it would be by a bill of sale. There's not been a bill of sale that's been issued because the Union Pacific, according to Mr. Eskelson, won't issue a bill of sale until they know it's going to be moved. So that, we've gone over that, and we were planning on, that's why I met with him, so you could have all that information in 2 weeks.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
sorry about the sunglasses.
You're fine.
Very good.
You're fine. You're fine. Any further discussion from the council? If there is none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? That sets that public hearing. We'll go to our consent agenda item. We've got 3 items there. Are there any concerns with any of those, or can we address them together?
I'm good with them together.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
together.
We got 3 items, 2 malt beverage permits and a street closure. Any questions or comments on them before we move forward? I'll entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Welling. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lynn, second. Any discussion? There's no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? That takes care of our consent agenda. Unfinished business, we'll go there to ordinance 2407. Mr. Harris, please.
Mr. Mayor, ordinance 2407 is an ordinance of the City of Evanston, Wyoming, amending provisions of Article 3, Regulations and Restrictions of Chapter 11 of the Code of the City of Evanston, Wyoming, relating to ponds and pawn shops, providing for adoption of provisions of Wyoming statutes regulating pond finance charges and maturities. This is before the council on second reading.
Thank you, sir. There's been no changes in the language of that ordinance.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor, there has not.
I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2407 on second reading.
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Mr. Welling. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Williams, seconding. Discussion.
I think it's something we need to do, so I think it makes sense.
Further discussion. If there is none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? That is approved on second reading. We'll now go to new business. A motion for a request by Joco LLC for an extension of time for the business to become operational. Now, we've tabled that, so I just want to mention that we've
Correct.
got, so we can
That's
move forward
correct.
past that now.
Correct,
Okay.
Your Honor.
I wanted to make sure that's what we did. Our next item there is a discussion regarding an update on the machine shop air conditioning and
Your Honor,
roof assessment.
we do need a motion and a second and a vote on it, tabling.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make the motion to table
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Joco LLC till October or September 17th.
17th?
September 17th.
September 17th.
second.
I recuse.
Got a motion and a second to table till the 17th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is effectively tabled. Thank you for catching that. Now we'll go to a discussion regarding the machine shop air conditioning. Who's going to lead that discussion for us?
I believe Councilmember Hageman.
Okay?
So again, just like the train, we need to start pushing things forward in a regimented manner and getting things out of discussion phase and into the real action phase. So discussion regarding the machine shop, this has been the air conditioning. We need to discuss where we're going to go with it. Are we going to get that roof assessment? Because for the HVAC on there, I don't see, and current bids, we need to start kicking that ball down the court too, because we need to address this. Ms. Sundquist brought up a great temporary fix, but we only have, you know, we've got 8 months before we start hitting weather again. So what do we want to do with this? Not hypothetically what we want to do with it. What do we want to do with the machine shop and the air conditioning problem as a council? Do we want to set aside money? Do we find that it is a good investment for our community? We all say we do. What are the next steps?
Mr. O'Neill, please help us.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I jotted a few factors down here that you might want to consider when talking about this, and just maybe a point of discussion amongst yourselves. It might be a work session item to bring up and talk in greater detail, but this has been a project on the docket. I think it's been on capital construction requests for about 10 years. And the costs seem to always increase. So here is item number one. Cost of equipment is estimated to be between $250,000 and $400,000. That number we got, the $250,000 number we got in 2020. So we don't know what that number is now, but just based on inflation we're seeing in our other construction projects, it's definitely greater than 250, probably somewhere around the $300,000 mark just for the equipment and controls. Two, the roof structure needs assessing, and I agree with that. That will require an architect, mechanical, civil, electric, a fleet of engineers to evaluate. That typically comes with a cost of between 5 and 15% of the estimated total project cost, and that's a cost we have to take off on from the beginning, even before we decide this is a project that we want to do. Three, the building's thermal properties. There's single pane glass windows, uninsulated brick walls, and so there's a discussion that needs to be had about potentially replacing the windows with insulated double pane glass, so we're not constantly running AC and just basically trying to AC a pizza oven, for lack of a better phrase. And then maintenance and utility costs long term. Right now the machine shop's monthly electrical bills somewhere between $900 and $1,200 a month. So obviously that cost will go up. We'll need to probably get an estimate from the architect's team, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, to give us kind of a takeoff on what those costs will be as well. And then a list of alternatives you might want to consider. One is industrial portable AC units. From the ones that Jesse and I have found online, those run, for the volume of air that you need to move in that facility, anywhere from $20,000 to $35,000 for those portable units. It will require electrical and exhaust upgrades to the building on top of that to service that equipment. And then you run into the issue with inefficiency and it's a loud machine.
Do you know how many of those we would need for that size of building? I mean, one unit, how many cubic feet or whatever do they move? Do we know?
That is a mechanical engineering question,
Okay.
and I'm not sure. I just don't know.
Okay.
We need a professional to tell
Those
us.
could be moved to other buildings as needed also, right?
As long as they have the electrical and exhaust provisions for that piece of equipment, yes.
All righty, thank you.
And then swamp cooler, which was discussed last time, that creates humidity problems, which create short-term and long-term problems in a facility like that. Obviously, condensation can create mold, can create wet spots on a slick, polished concrete floor, et cetera. Running hoses and potential water leaks could be a safety hazard. I personally think the swamp evap cooler is not a realistic option, just because it creates a level of liability for the city that we're not comfortable with. And so we'd really want to go with an air conditioning unit. And then there's two other options. One is have renters sign a disclosure prior to, or an agreement prior to renting the facility, acknowledging that there's no AC in the facility, or we don't rent during those warm days in the summer. So those are, and then obviously we just continue as we have. So that's kind of what I've evaluated and kind of what we're looking at. I haven't moved forward on anything because that involves spending money, and I want some direction from this body before we do that.
Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Hageman?
Well, I think first things first is a structural engineer we need to get a structural engineer to see if this is even feasible. And then, you know, as Rocco pointed out, 10 years this has been on the agenda. This is exactly why I put it on this. We just keep kicking it down the curb, and it just gets more expensive, because the quotes we saw from Tom's HVAC from 2020 were in the, you know, what were they, 250? Yeah. So, yeah, we kick it down the curb again, it's going to get more expensive. That's the way the world works. It doesn't change here in Evanston. So, first things first, structural engineers, as far as the single paned glass, that is a factor. It can be, there's new technologies, and also in 10 years, you know, think of an iPhone 10 years ago. Technologies happen in materials as well. That is my specialty, actually. So we can coat, we can put film on them, just for an example. Brick happens to be a great insulator, so I'm not particularly worried about that brick. It's been around for 100 and something years, and it keeps the cold and the heat where it needs to be if we do what we need to do. So the big issue, it would seem to me, distilling all the problems that were brought up, is first and foremost, will the roof hold the HVAC? So we need those answers with a structural engineer. And there's a couple of structural engineers. That comes first, and we've got to get one, and I don't know where Mr. O'Neill got his numbers, but a certain percentage of a project, but normally they just work off of a project, and you pay them. They're not cheap.
Could we just put that out, could we put that out for bid? I mean, is that a situation where we could just say, hey, we want to evaluate the roof?
Please.
We put it out for bid to say, hey, and then we could look at numbers on even what it would cost for a structural engineer to come look at it.
You can ask for proposals. We normally select professionals by RFP, engineers, that way. The second thing that we could do is that staff could look at and see if there's an estimate from a structural engineer about a ballparking, saying, if you did this, what would this analysis cost? And I think we could also get you more information. You remember in the work session, Ms. Madrid said that there are energy efficiency programs available. I know Rocky Mountain Power has an energy efficiency audit, they call them. And I know that there's actually a joint powers board with Wyoming Association of Municipalities that has energy efficiency grants available too. So we could gather that information, see if there's a possible way. Mr. Newsom would know more maybe about what we can get from a structural engineer, but maybe get a ballpark, bring that back to you, get more information about the energy efficiency grants, and then you can have that hopefully by the 17th you could get more information.
I mean, we're looking at next summer, realistically anyway, so we got a little bit of time to evaluate this. So first step, hey, let's figure out what it costs for a structural engineer. If we feel like that cost is, you know, within reason, then we get that done, and then we go, okay, if it can be done, then we know it can be done, and then we take the next step to say, hey, can we afford putting in something else?
And if we can get the structural, the plans from Myers Anderson, I believe, I missed the name.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
We have those.
You have them?
The city has them, yeah.
Great.
I do have a copy, but we do have them.
Okay. Well, we can further discussion on the 17th then.
Right?
We put some stuff together for the 17th? Okay, cool.
Love it.
Resolution 2459. Mr. Harris, read the
Thank you.
title for us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution 2459 is a resolution, City of Evanston, Wyoming, repealing Resolution 2326 relating to adoption of council rules and procedure and order.
Thank you. Ms. Hageman, I understand this is your concern here?
Yep. So
What in mind?
It was advised to me that this be repealed and we should redo it. It's been problematic in a number of areas. Some of it's redundant, some of it is, it's just it's just poorly put together. It violates some constitutional issues for land, it's free speech, property owners. There is no there's no enforcement. So, you know, if it goes sideways, who's going to enforce it? There's no due process. There's no appeal process. There's no standard of proof. There's no nothing. This needs to be cleared up on many different levels. And so the first step I was advised was to repeal this as a whole and then start again. So that's what I'm doing.
When you say you were advised of this, who provided this advice?
A number of attorneys.
Do you have names? You always throw out attorneys, but you never have a name of an attorney.
Well, for starters, it was the WHAM attorney. So
And her
that
name
was
is?
one. Elizabeth Lance.
Okay.
And then Jaylee, God, what is her last name, was when I first started working on this. And then there was a local attorney here that's recently passed. He took a look at it when he was here before. This has been something that I've been wanting to get done, but not quite knowing how to proceed. Now I know how to proceed, so this is the first step.
Mr. Harris, is there any, I mean, I know that when we considered this resolution, we talked about it. I mean, is there any validity to any of those concerns from your perspective?
Having heard what those concerns were for the first time, I do not concur that those are, regarding the constitutional violations, due process and appeal process, I don't share those concerns. Whether it's problematic, redundant, and there's no enforcement, that's up to the council to determine.
Well, I guess this, I guess I don't concur as well. I think this is a valid resolution. The 2326 is a valid resolution. It puts together some of our ethics that we live by. I remember dealing with the issue, and I felt supportive and confident that it was a worthwhile thing to do. And so I'm not in favor of this resolution repealing 2326 at all, but for discussion purposes, I'll entertain, is there an introduction on this resolution?
I'll introduce with a motion to pass. Get it on the table.
Lynch with a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lind with a second. Discussion.
I voted for this before. I didn't see where it was problematic then, and I still don't. So I'm not going to vote to repeal it. I'm sorry.
I agree with Mr. Perks, and I think we all voted for it except for one, and it was good then, and now it's not good, so I think this is not a good resolution.
Can anybody refresh my memory on why we felt like we needed this resolution in the first place?
Mr. Mayor, I can't. I wasn't here.
You weren't here. Amanda put all the work into it, so yeah, I mean, that's more of a, can somebody refresh my memory why we thought this was needed?
I'm trying to just remember the discussion. As I remember, it was just a matter of outlining some ethics, putting forth some rules that so it became clear of the ethics that we were going to live by as a council. I don't think it was.
So, I mean,
do you remember anything?
Did we? I remember when it came through, and I know Amanda put it forth, and I don't know. I voted for it because I guess I didn't see no harm or foul to it, and I guess, but at the same time, I look at it now and I go, I don't know if there was any need for it that I saw, but I mean, if we're going to be governed under Robert's rules, I just thought it was kind of redundant and over, like, I don't see, I mean, at the end of the day, I voted for it, and I didn't see, like, but I also didn't see that it did anything good or bad. It's more like redundant myself, but
One thing I find interesting in 2326 is it does specifically say that the meeting will adjourn by motion, right in it.
Mr. Mayor? Please. Mr. Sellers, that is correct. In addition to that, the city ordinance, section 2-3, I believe, is an ordinance that adopts Robert's Rules of Order in the most recent edition. That provision you're referring to is in a resolution which will not void the enforcement of an ordinance adopted. So if there's conflict, the ordinance is going to prevail.
so that kind of proves more of the point. This is redundant and probably don't need it then.
Any further discussion? I guess I'll call for the vote then. All in favor of Resolution 2459 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Four? You're an aye? All opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. If that passes, I guess I will.
If I could say, if my man, like say anything?
Go ahead.
I don't think it's a bad thing if all of us as a council got together and maybe rebuilt something like this, and we built it together, so we're based on all of our own ethics and what we'd like to see in it. I do appreciate the work that Amanda put into it.
That's exactly the next step.
But at the same time, maybe we do something all together. So we,
I do
Yep.
feel that there's a need for standardized form and direction, but I think it needs to make sure that the power base remains where it needs to be and not just, that's my biggest concern, is it leads the mayor, the position of the mayor has ultimate authority, and I don't think we as a country, we were designed on separation of powers between the branches.
And Jess, you brought up exactly what this is. So I was advised to repeal this first, and then we all get together and we construct one that works a little bit better for all of us. And gets, there was some language in here that worked, I'm assuming for another state, but speakers must be residents of the city of Evanston. Well, that's not going to fly. It violates Article 6 of the Wyoming Constitution. In order to preserve the integrity of the decision maker, public input may not be taken on any land use or any other application pending before the council. That needs to go. That is not how we conduct business or a government in this country, period. So, and especially with the Wyoming Constitution and its absolute authority to the people and to all the pages and pages and pages of that thing that addresses land use. So, I mean, we just need to clean it up and make it better.
We can have that discussion. The resolution is passed. We'll have the discussion at a future date. I assume we'll put this on a work session agenda, and we'll discuss it again. So the resolution is passed tonight. Comments from departments?
Want to discuss it anymore?
At a work session, we will.
Okay.
Comments from departments? Mr. Newsom, do you have anything for us tonight?
No.
Mr. O'Neill, do you have anything more for us tonight? Ms. Lynn? Ms. Larson? Mr. Robinson? Police Department, you got all of them here. No, sir. Chief Brandon? Ms. Harris?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Harris?
I do have one point of clarification, if I may, Your Honor. let me just go back and make sure I have this right. The motion to approve the applications for renewal of the liquor licenses, Ms. Hageman, did you vote on that?
No.
You did not vote on all of the remaining?
I just recused myself from the JOCO one.
Oh, for that one only?
Yes.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
So I just wanted clear that that was a 7-0 vote. You see what I'm getting at?
Okay, yep.
Okay, correct? All right. Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Public participation. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to address? Please come forward.
Hello, Gina Sundquist. The reason I'm here tonight is I wanted to follow up on the machine shop air conditioning. I have had some, and I can't take the credit for this, I've had a lot of public citizens come up to me and give me some ideas for funding. One of them was Kathy Cook. She thought it would be a great idea, as well as I did, if it could be sometimes on the water bill, we do funding for Roundup for things that the public needs or whatnot. I was thinking that that might be a good idea for the machine shop to round up your, if you feel so inclined, you could round up your water bill, 60 cents, and that could go funding, could go towards the machine shop air conditioning. It was just an idea that I thought was a really good one. And then Scott Young, a resident here, reached out to me, very brilliant man, actually. I do believe, if I might get this wrong, but he was an engineer for the state of Nevada, retired. But he came up to me and he sent me some information, so it's way over my head, but I just wanted to present it. And I made some copies for all of you on 179D commercial buildings energy efficiency tax deduction through the Department of Energy. It is a potential federal tax incentive for municipal HVAC installations. This section of the 179D is part of the Inflation Reduction Act. It may provide incentives for cities with existing buildings to qualify for payments towards certain systems, like air conditioning or heat or whatnot. And in this bulletin I printed out for all of you, there's links in it that can provide more detail. As I said, I'm not an expert in any of this. It's way over my head, but hopefully your engineers and city experts can review the bulletins and determine exactly how the 179D commercial buildings tax deduction can apply to the city, and as well as calculate the possible savings to the city. It may not pay the entire cost, but it could be a significant benefit. I mean, it's definitely worth looking into, for sure, if it would cut down the cost of the HVAC for taxing. And I made a copy for all of you all, and I got one for Rocco as well, and the papers, so you guys just want to pass that. Like I said, I'm no expert in it, but I thought it was really interesting, and it has some good, it might help. If there's federal funds available, let's take them. Our state can use them as well as the big, states and big cities. And then I was listening to everything that Rocco said, and I know that it's going to be costly. The list of alternatives might be better in the interim, but the one thing that I don't agree on is, well, I agreed when I rented the building. I knew there was no air conditioning. They walked me through it, they told me. But you guys cannot rent that building, and it's hard to predict because you don't know the weather. But that day, you guys, we seriously could have had an emergency. We had 3 people seriously ill. I'm not sugarcoating it, and it just, you can't do that to the citizens. You can't do that. It's dangerous, and it's not good. Especially for the elderly, those on oxygen, it just can't, you can't not, and it stinks because you can't not rent the building because it's so beautiful. So I don't know, at least look into the alternatives, but look into this. I think it's a great idea. I'm still going to come up with some fundraising ideas. I was thinking maybe, doing a quilt raffle. I mean, I can do little things, but this is, but this tax deduction might be a really good start. And then maybe possibly rounding up on the water bill, if citizens are so inclined, and I'll try to talk them into it. So thank you for your time. That's all I had today. Thank you.
Trudy, what's our roundup for now?
It's going to the recycling center. We began that.
Okay.
I didn't know how many months you'd use that for, but like the next one, if you guys consider the next roundup, maybe, it could be the machine shop.
Not generate a lot of income.
Well, but it's something, it's a start. And if I can get my word out and talk to people, heck, maybe some people will contribute hundreds of dollars. Who knows? Who knows? You never know unless you try.
Sure.
Mayor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor? Right now, the roundup is to try to get the money for a compactor, because one of the reasons we lose money on every load of cardboard that goes out, and if we can actually get the compactor and take more cardboard at once because they're bales, well, we can save recycling, because we go down every month. Every month. Mayor's letter, we got a great hit with that, and it really helped the recycling out. And thank you, Mayor. But it's already starting to dwindle. So if we can get the compactor, which is going to take a long time with the roundup, because it is very, very little.
I also think it's important to note that, the people that use the machine shop are Evanston citizens. So I don't like spending money as much as the next guys. But this is a community asset. It is used by our community. It benefits our community. So I liken it a lot to a road. And when we look back on why we were taxed, taxes started in the very beginning of this country, it was for roads and general purpose use of community assets. And that is a community asset. It's not being rented to a lot of people out of state or anything. We're using it. And we need to use it, and it needs to be beneficial for our community, because it is an asset to our community, and we've spent a ton of money on it anyway. And we can do more with it if we can use it all the time. But as far as spending money on the taxpayers' money that they trust with us to benefit them, I think it's a worthy cause.
Can I say one thing? I know I got shot down, but the penny tax that gets put on, continues to try and get put on the ballot. I don't like taxes. I don't like the way the federal government spends my taxes. But when it's a local penny tax like that, a lot of these communities benefit greatly. And I know every time it gets put on the ballot, everybody looks at it like it's a tax. So I don't want to pay any more taxes. But that penny tax goes right back into our community. So I just talked to Rock Springs. They got a half penny tax they use. There's a lot of places that use it. So I know the first thing everybody thinks about tax. I don't want to get taxed. I don't want to get taxed anymore. But I just watched how many different projects stand in front of us going, hey, that penny tax could really help fund a lot of this stuff. So if we ever get it back on the ballot, everybody maybe think about all these different things we need to fund. And it could be funded pretty easily through that type of tax. So, sorry.
Anyone else wanting to? Mr. Horn, please.
Shelley Horn, 31 Park Road, Evanston. I know that you're going to talk about opening the budget on the 17th. But I feel that some of you at least, maybe all of you, are laboring under a very serious misunderstanding about what you're looking at. First, I want to thank Mark Harris for talking with Rick and I and going over a whole lot of important information that we needed to have. I would also like to thank Tom Franz for his support in this project. Now, I know that some of you think this is a good project. It would be valuable to the city, and it is. What I think you don't understand is the $84,000. Those numbers are as hard as they could be at the time that we got them. Now, I don't think that Rick ever understood that you wanted to see some kind of a document from a vendor or a contractor or whatever. He thought you would accept his word that that's what they said. The thing is, the $84,000 is a number for moving the water tank from Wasatch to Evanston and erecting it here. It is nowhere near the dollar amount that is going to be required to make that water tank into what it is intended to be. I haven't looked at the Myers-Anderson study and report for over a year, but I think that the total cost of putting that water tank in there was in excess of $200,000. Now, I don't know whether Tom could confirm that or not, and I'll have to dig out that study and see. All we're asking for is the amount of money that it would take to move it. And when you get to be in the you lose your train of thought.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you very much. I don't think that, we, as a Historic Preservation Commission, we look to volunteers, we look to people to donate, we ask contractors to do the work for their cost. We seldom, if in my memory, I don't remember coming to you and asking you for a lot of money to do anything. This is the first time. And if you're not happy with the $84,000 number, pick a number, We are going to move that thing one way or another, and if it takes us more years to raise the money on our own, we will. We just thought that because it is so important to the city, that perhaps you'd be interested in helping. If you're not, that's fine, we'll get it done. One of the problems that we have is with the Union Pacific Railroad, and I'm sure you're all aware of how difficult they are to deal with. We've been working on trying to get that water tank for over 10 years. And due to Rick's tenacity, he finally nailed him down. But they've told us, once you give us that decision and ask us to transfer it, you're only going to have 180 days to get the whole project done and get it out of there. Well, without the money, we don't know whether we could meet that deadline. And that might mean that we'd be right back talking with the Union Pacific Railroad for another 10 years. This is not the done deal that it appears to be. The railroad has said, yes, we will donate it, and we'll donate it to Rink, but they have given us this condition. You've got to get back to us and tell us when you're going to be able to do it. And that's why we're asking for a little help with the money. I don't know whether that clarifies things for you or not, but, it's a small part of what the total cost is going to be.
Good things to think about. Thank you, sir. I think I understand what you're after, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad project. My concern is that it's almost like we need the cart before the horse sometimes, because we need some hard and fast numbers, and I know that isn't necessarily all that available to us. But when we talk about the budget and the city budget, as you know, we usually talk as firm in numbers as we possibly can, and what we're going to be expending that money on. And this is a hard thing with this particular instance, because if the city's going to do it, from my perspective, we need to get it and pick it up and bring it here and set it, and we need to know exactly what all of that is going to entail as far as project goes and project costs, and evaluate it as a whole Because if all we're going to do is get it here, if $84,000 will just get it here, what do we do with it once it's here? Because we have no hard and fast, firm.
Leave it to us after you get it here.
I wish it was that easy. I wish it was that easy.
Well, I think you can impress upon Rick that you want to see the hard numbers, and he'll give them to you. I'm sure that he will.
I'm sure he will.
And, you know, if you're not interested in funding the whole thing, which I never thought you would be in the first place, any part of it you want to pick up, pick a contractor. Pick anything you want and say, okay, we'll cover that.
Shelley, if you can get that thing moved and upright for $84,000, I give you a thumbs up, great job, good faith and credit, that would be awesome. I would love to see it. I want to see it. So that'd be great.
And I tell you honestly, if the $84,000 doesn't cover it, we'll continue to raise money until we get enough to do it. Any other questions?
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be 37?
I can't remember.
37 overtime.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the council for any reason tonight? Please.
Hello, council, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Harris, Ms. Harris. Mr. Harris, you're sitting in your seat, unlike last time I was here. Thank you. You know what? City business is so riveting that, you know, they pay you to sit in the whole seat. You don't have to sit on the edge. I do want to say I hope that the City Council, Mr. Mayor, you do support the water tower being moved from Wasatch to Evanston. It is something I go by every day at work, and I would rather much see it very well restored and very well cared for by the city of Evanston than to leave to rot at Wasatch, because like I've said in the past, I can't speculate on Union Pacific's policies and procedures, but I think they will leave it to sit out there until eternity, and I'd rather much see it in Evanston. Mr. Welling, I know you were slightly concerned about the condition it is in, and you know, the caboose, the re-railing locomotive, and the dining car as looking at sort of a junkyard over there. I do think with some of my efforts and Tom's, and well, of course, Mr. Eskelson, Ms. Kathy Cook, and Mr. Slaughter, Ms. King Pratt, Ms. Hagman, Mr. Sellers, yourself, Evan Purse, Mr. Lind, and Mr. Lynch, after we didn't raise a lot of money for the Big Boy Bash, but you know what, we did get a lot of interesting data out of it. And I think we could build on it. I think that we can raise money probably a lot quicker than we have traditionally done. And, you know, as a volunteer for Roundhouse Restoration, Inc., and the Evanston Historic Preservation Commission, and the Uintah County Museum, granted, I've been doing this since I was 13. I also helped out in Rock Springs and Salt Lake City when I lived there. But Evanston's always home, right? I think that we could actually genuinely, honestly have something incredible here that we already have. There's only 2 left in the nation, these roundhouses, full complete. I think with further development, with interest out of the largest metropolitan group of metropolitan cities near us, you've got Salt Lake City, Denver, we can have a great tourist industry. We can have a great, you know, a great manufacturing base. We can have all these things. And those interesting things that we have, like we have a world-class golf course. We've got the Roundhouse. We've got a beautiful Depot Square and Chinese History Museum. We have all these beautiful things. Why can't we develop that further and introduce Evanston to the world? We're right on Interstate 80. We've got Union Pacific pulling crap through every day. Let's build on it. Let's showcase, why don't you help us restore and preserve our past and build our future? We can do it. So, yeah, that's all I got to say.
Thanks, sir.
I have one other thing to add. You know, I agree with Mr. Welling that it is starting to look like a bit of a junkyard down there with our city-owned dining car and our city-owned caboose and our city-owned cars. It's just such a bummer we don't have a big, beautiful, restored roundhouse to put them in. Get them in Section 2. Please.
I just thought of something. I do apologize, sorry. Going back to our junkyard, we could honestly, Tom Willing, everyone, if we can raise the money and you're willing to help us raise the money, we can do it. I'm excited because this is kind of something I've been working on a little bit. So in 1904, the University of Wyoming and the University of Utah played their first game 120 years ago in Wyoming. Actually, 1905. I do apologize. So it was in 1905, 120 years ago next year. We are working on something with that. And I mean, all I can say is stay tuned. Let's try something. Oh, no. You guys want to go for a train ride?
Sir? Anyone else? If not, we'll adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
We're done now.